Welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab, your ultimate podcast for mastering the mental game of clay shooting and gaining exclusive insights from the top minds in the industry. Join us as we dive into the strategies of elite athletes, uncover the secrets to peak performance, and share powerful techniques to enhance your shooting skill. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of the clay shooting industry. Get ready to elevate your game, sharpen your focus, and gain insider knowledge from the best in the business. Let's get started. Here's your host, Don Grant.
Okay, folks, welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you following and tuning in, and for all of your positive feedback whenever I see you at events and such. So thank you for being here, and thanks for your feedback. I have Owen Haas with me today, and I'm excited to chat with him to find out how he's doing and successes he's been having, but also some of the challenges he may be facing along the way that many of you could probably relate to. So welcome. Thank you, Owen.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So how are you today?
Pretty good. Just got done with a large tournament stretch. So I have about a week, and then I'm going to ACUI Nationals with the Florida State team.
Nice. Very good. Well, I like people to introduce themselves and give some highlights so that the listeners can, know who the heck you are and why they want to tune in.
So I started my journey as an SCTP shooter, joining the Forest City Juniors back in 9th grade. So I'm 20 now, so I've been shooting for about, give or take, 5.5 years. The first discipline that I really fell in love with was skeet. I was a big skeet shooter. I used to do a lot of NSSA shoots, had a whole set of tubes. My first major accomplishment was I shot a 200 at SCTP Nationals my second year shooting, and I got runner-up nationally after a 4-way shoot-off. And that was when I really started taking shooting more seriously, because that 200 kind of came out of nowhere based on my average scores. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I think I can really take this to the next level. So I really focused on skeet for a while. And then it kind of got to a point where I love skeet, but I got to a point where I wanted to try something new. I won the Krieghoff Masters 12 gauge in 2023. That was my first major win. That wasn't just a youth tournament. And at that point, I'm like, okay, let's start diving into some more sporting clay stuff. So I started shooting NSCA in about 2023 when I did the first whole tour set. Mm-hmm. Kind of got my rear end handed to me for the first year. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And then next year I started getting more lessons. My main coach is Desi Edmonds. She's been a major influence on my game. And then my goal for the last, basically since I started shooting at SSCA, was to make the U.S. national team at some point. And last year, I ended up making it for this year. So that was a big accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's been a blast. I love it. I've made the All-American team a bunch of times. My biggest win probably was this past weekend at Seminole Cup. I HOA'd Super Sporting. I HOA'd the 12 gauge, and I was sitting pretty in main event. Had a few hiccups from the last day. It happens. Can't control that. I'm just got to move forward with it, but I love it.
Nice. Well, interesting. So I'm curious. You said you started with skeet. First of all, what got you involved in clay shooting?
I had never really touched a gun until I was 14, 15. I grew up in New Jersey. We moved down here when I was 13. And
Where's
my
here?
high school.
Where are you now?
Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. My home club is Forest City. I live about 5 minutes away from it.
Okay, cool.
So we moved down, and at about 9th grade, we have a family friend. His name is Nathan Porter, and the dad is John Porter. And they said, hey, we're starting a high school clay target team if you're interested in joining. And my dad mentioned this to me, and I had no idea what in the world I was getting myself into. So I'm like, sure, I'll go to a practice day, try it out. Why not? I used to play a lot of golf. I wasn't very good at it, but that was my main sport for a while. So I went to this first practice, did pretty terribly. I think I shot a 2 out of 25 on skeet. But I thought it was really fun. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this year. Low committal. I'll borrow somebody's gun for the year, see what happens. And I just fell in love with it from there.
Nice. And then you also said that when you got those hundreds, it was far from what your typical score was. So what was your typical score at that time?
In skeet at that time, I averaged around a 93, 94. I'd never shot above a 50 straight at that point. So I had that the way it works at SCTP Nationals is it's 2 days. So you shoot 100 the first day and 100 the next day. So the first day I shot 100. It was maybe the chippiest 100 I've ever shot in my life,
Yeah.
but it was still 100 nonetheless.
That's true.
So I'm like, all right, I've already had a great nationals, and my process going into the second day was, regardless of what happens, I've already done way better than I thought I would. And the second day, gonna be completely honest, I don't remember it super well that entire round. I was so focused on just have the right hold points. Don't say pull till you're ready. And then if you're gonna get the 100, it'll happen. And it happened. So that was my biggest thing. And I have a funny story about it. I used to be a very nervous shooter. So my Forest City team at the time was about 80 kids. And one of the coaches mentioned that I was straight. And I look over to the right of me and there's like 70 people watching me shoot. And I go to my dad and I'm like, Dad, can you tell them to go away? And my coach hears this and he comes up and he goes to me and he goes, if you don't shoot a 200 because people are watching you, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's a good way of thinking about it. So shot that 200, and that was the point at which I'm like, okay, I really want to take this more seriously. I don't want this to be the only time I do something major.
Yeah, no, I love that. What a great story. So you said that some of what you could attribute that to, especially on the second day, which sounds really cool. You were in the zone, is what it sounds like. You kept it simple, right? The KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? You stayed focused on the process, the specific details, and not only does that help with your mechanics, but it helps with your mental as well. So you weren't overthinking it or like, oh my God, what am I thinking I'm doing here? You just let go. And that's what people strive to experience. So it's cool that you experienced it so young. And then that it motivated you, and that it came out of nowhere at such an early time in your shooting life, right? So all that's pretty neat. That's pretty unique. So then you fall in love with it, and you end up doing the circuit you said for the NSCA, and you're getting in. How long you been getting instruction with Desi?
I've been getting instruction with Desi since 2022. I got one lesson with her then just for the purpose of shooting better sporting clays at FCTP tournaments.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing her in 2023 and 2024 when I was still in high school. Semi-regularly, I'd say once or twice a month. And then nowadays, it's like once every 3 or 4 months just for a tune-up or to learn something new that I can maybe use to help my game.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So, well, are you in school or anything right now?
Yes, I go to school at Florida State.
So where are you living, like, when you're at school?
When I'm at school, I'm in Tallahassee, but I live in Savannah, Georgia. That's where I mostly compete at, especially for the summer circuit. I don't stay at school for the summer.
Okay, gotcha. Got ya.
Yes.
Yeah, so what are you going to school for?
I'm going to school to study psychology, and I'm minoring in statistics and English.
Interesting combo. Wait, all three of those are interesting combo.
So my dad was a school social worker for 30 years.
Yeah.
I get that from him. I get a lot of mental stuff from him also, which I can dive into later. He's been a large influence on the way I've mentally approached this sport.
Yeah.
But I personally, I love working with kids. I coach part-time as well. I want to work probably, I don't know if necessarily a school setting, but I do want to work with kids in the mental health field in the future.
Nice.
And that, again, takes back from my dad. He worked in public schools for the longest time.
That's so cool. That's what I was wanting to do too, as I was getting out of high school, going into college. And the first few years of college was to work with children and families, and got my degree in psychology. That's how it all started. Yeah, it's a great thing, and working in schools helps you define what you're going to do with kids. So I went into the mental health sector as a children's case manager, social work as a case manager, just not in the structured setting. I could see how being in the school would actually be beneficial for that. It's very clear like what you're doing and how much you can do. And yeah, so good for you. And so how's the statistics play in there?
So I want to work in psychology. I want to go into more of a formal setting, like either medical psychology, like in a hospital. And the biggest thing statistics does is it makes it easier for me to get internships out of college, because a lot of these internships are very research heavy. You need to know how to work these statistical programs. And that experience helps me go into these research projects and not have to have as much instruction as maybe somebody who doesn't know how to run those programs. Interesting.
Well thought out. So you don't necessarily want to do one-on-one private sessions with somebody?
Not necessarily. I do want to work in a medical setting. I went into school originally as a dual psychology biology major. I wasn't a huge fan of chemistry, wasn't a huge fan of biology, and those two things, if you don't like, you're not going to do well in med school.
Yes.
So I dove into it more. I talked to a few people. I talked to one of my school advisors, and they said, hey, you might be interested in medical psych. And it still requires you to go after school, get a PhD program, that whole thing. But it's a lot more focused on the mental health side of it rather than the medical side of it.
Interesting. Well,
So that's where I'm at now.
So having a brain that likes statistics, numbers, analyzing, crunching numbers, all of that kind of thing, how do you see that playing into your clay shooting, and has it affected it in a negative way?
The only problem I feel like I have with it is I am unable to not count my scores in the middle of a round. And I know generally as an average what I shoot. And the problem that I have with that sometimes is I don't like to know what I'm shooting. I don't want to know what other people have already shot on a course. I don't want to know what I've shot. The problem is I'm always acutely aware of how which in and itself is kind of a folly, because the fun part about NSCA instead of skeet is that you really don't know how well you're shooting until you're done and everyone else's scores are in.
Right.
The amount of times that I have shot around and thought, oh, I did terrible. I shot let's say an 88, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to win anything. And then I get back and, oh my God, the high score is an 89.
Yeah. You lived and learned that one. So you're pretty good at not thinking that anymore? I
have to force myself not to. I have a rule that I do not check scores for an event that I'm not completely done shooting.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it from anybody. Like some Jack Links recently, they were telling scores for the HOA standings at the dinner. And the first second I heard, we're going to talk about where people are standing, I just plugged my ears and looked down at the table.
Oh, boy.
I just don't want to know. I just don't want to know. I want to focus on myself, because the only thing you have control over is how you shoot. You don't have control over how somebody else is shooting. It's just you.
Well, and eventually down the road, if you're ever interested in it, having a really good mental game and mental strength, you wouldn't have to plug your ears, just an FYI. Being able to process that information and not allow it to affect you or to infiltrate into your shooting would be the next level up for you. But yeah, so you said that your father has been in school and social work, and that's helped you a lot with the mental side. So tell us about that.
So the biggest thing he's taught me is self-accountability. You can't, well, the first thing is I can't lie to my dad. It's impossible. He was a school social worker in public schools for 20 odd years. I can't get anything past him. Trust me, I've tried. It just can't happen. And that includes lying to myself. You can't. The biggest thing that I have found is having self-accountability and not blaming anything on anybody else is the biggest success that I've had. If a golf cart's backing up and it beeps, or if somebody behind you is talking, at the end of the day, you're the one who pulled the trigger. You're the one who shot at the clay. Yes. Save for somebody grabbing your gun and pushing it. It's all on you at that point. And it took me a while to really internalize that. He told it to me for a long time.
Yeah.
But it took until about last year for me to really understand what that means. And I think my biggest strength is I really don't get jarred if somebody distracts me in the middle of me shooting. I'll have conversations. There'll be conversations going on behind me. There'll be golf carts backing up, people talking. I've been able to so hard focus on what I'm doing in front of me that I don't even notice the noise behind me until afterwards. Somebody will maybe speak loudly, but during my shot, and they'll come up to me afterwards and say, hey, I'm sorry, I spoke during your shot. I hope it didn't mess you up. And I didn't even realize they spoke.
Nice. That's perfect.
That's been the biggest thing he's taught me. The second biggest thing is he is very heavy into meditation. I meditate very frequently. I'd say give or take, I try to do it at least once per day, either when I wake up or before I go to bed, one of the two. But that's been very helpful to me. I've also learned how to do quick meditation sessions before a round, even when I'm not like in a quiet environment such as my house. I just pop on headphones with no noise, just turn off everything. And I have mantras that I work through. So those are the two biggest things that he's taught me.
Nice. Well, first I want to touch on the no excuse thing. I had a really strong disciplinarian, like stepfather, who was like very authoritative. So it wasn't all fun and games, but the thing that he whipped into us was no excuses. And if I was to say that, anything that I really gained from that relationship, that was one of them. And I still have it in my brain. Like I was running late to this call with you, and I won't make excuses for it. Like it's just, I need to apologize and I need to own it. Right. And that's where I got it from. But it's, to me, I don't know, it's probably a part of my day every single day. to own things and to be accountable to yourself and to do the right thing. It's not a matter of making excuses. And, life happens, situations happen. You don't need to blame somebody else. It's all on ourselves, our individual choices and decisions and all that. So I love that you've got that at a young age and that you're applying it already. But the meditation, boy, we could talk for a whole hour on that. So I'm curious because there are so many forms of meditation. What do you like to do? And is it the same like morning, night? Or do you ever change it like to week or anything? Or just, give us a good idea of what you're doing when you say meditation.
Generally, the meditations that I follow are just short, quick mantra talks, just turning off everything, sitting in silence, not in the dark necessarily, because I don't like falling asleep through meditation. Because I don't find the meditation sits as hard if I treat it as something I used to go to sleep, because then it doesn't feel like meditation. It just feels like a sleeping exercise at that point to me. I essentially sit down, I run through what I've done during the day, just quiet. I have little mantras that I'll say sometimes, stuff like peace begins with me is probably my favorite one. It grounds me. It helps me just focus on what I'm doing. If it's before a shoot, I just say, it's these little mental quips. I don't say them out loud. It's just do what you know to do. Just silently in my head for about 10, 15 minutes. Nothing super, super structured. Just stuff that helps me keep grounded in the moment.
Okay. So I want to, pick your brain a little bit more. So do you sit a certain way, or are you on a chair? Are you on the floor, cross-legged? You're on your bed laying down? Tell me about that. And is it yourself, or do you listen to something? Do you close your eyes? Give us details.
I used to listen. I used to do the Peloton meditation sessions they have. You can pull quick 20-minute ones. That's what I got started with. I realized after a while that I would actually stop focusing on the meditation, and I was focusing too much on what the person in the Peloton was doing rather than what I was doing.
Okay.
So typically if I'm at my house, I just sit cross-legged on my bed. I close my eyes. I have my hands on my knees. I try not to move. I try not to get distracted. Can't control that necessarily all the time, but I just sit cross-legged. I sit comfortably for about 15, 20 minutes. I control my breathing. I usually do 4 seconds in, 7 seconds out, which is a different split than most people do, but
it's all different kinds.
Yeah. I found for me that gets me the most grounded. And then
Nice.
if it's at a tournament, usually I'm sitting in a cart. If I can try to, I'll find a quiet place just for 5 minutes. I have noise canceling headphones. I'll put those on. I won't play any music. I'll just close my eyes and run through quick mantras in my head. Slow down my breathing.
Nice.
Just get me calm.
Yeah, there's so much I could say. First of all, my first exposure to meditation was as a toddler probably, and my father would sit on the couch cross-legged and he would do a mantra, and he would do it out loud. Of course, I didn't know at the time what that was, but he would say just the word one. He'd go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, just over and over again out loud. There are all different kinds of meditation. So, you're talking about one specific kind. And the concept is you're wide awake or you're asleep, and there's stages between that. And that's the process of falling asleep or relaxing either lightly or deeply. And meditation is any place in that relaxed state. It's same with the hypnosis. They're actually identical states of mind. It's just what you do there that is different related to hypnosis or meditation. And when you say, I'd rather not use it to just go to sleep, to just explain to everybody, there's beta, alpha, theta, delta. Delta is sleep, beta is wide awake, and alpha is right below beta, and then theta is below that. So what we'd consider deep relaxation, almost asleep, is theta, and what we consider light relaxation, just barely closing your eyes and starting to relax, that's alpha. So what Owen is saying is he'd rather not just, go into a meditative hypnotic state and then fall asleep, as if that's his exercise. He would rather put himself in a position, you're sitting up, you're very deliberate about how you're sitting and where you're at, and you're probably not doing it you could do it at bedtime, but you're wanting to sit up, or you could do it in the morning, but you're wanting to sit up, and all to not fall asleep from it, because you would fall asleep, right? And you probably have before if you're lying down and more comfortable. So that's a very deliberate thing. Personally, I will use that time on my process of falling asleep, and in the process of waking up in the morning, I'll use that time deliberately for visualizations and affirmations. So before going to bed, I will do gratitude. And I shouldn't say before, laying in bed, lights out, ready to go to sleep. I'm very deliberate because I know I'm passing through this state anyway. So I might as well take advantage of it, right? So I'll do lots of gratitude and positive stuff and appreciation of my life and specific things about where I'm at And then in the morning, again, just taking advantage of this opportunity, I will then do visualizations and specific affirmations, suggestions based on whatever it is that I'm working on at that time in my life. And then separate, like what you're saying, I will go into a room where I do my stretching and exercising, and I have a meditation spot there where I will sit up and on purpose do a meditation for about 10 or 15 minutes, and either clearing my mind, which is an exercise, you have to work at it, it won't stay clear, or I like contemplate a certain topic or a little like phrase, a concept, something deep and philosophical, and I'll kind of meditate on it and get like enlightenment from it and such. So there's a lot of different ways. And so you're explaining one, and you said that you do it almost every day, which is awesome. So now let's talk about how that carries into your shooting. You said that sometimes you do meditation before shooting, but what would you say that you're practicing in meditation that carries over to your actual shooting?
The biggest thing that I try to replicate between the two is the breathing. Whenever I'm shooting and I know I'm shooting good, I mean, my heart rate goes up, you start breathing more. I want to get back into that relaxed state. And that 4-7 breathing is something that I can replicate in the middle of a stand.
Yes.
If I'm really, really getting worked up, I'll take a second, I'll break up my gun, I'll do that maybe 2 or 3 times until I feel myself not racing anymore. And I find doing that doesn't fully give me the same feel I get at home when I'm doing meditation, but it gets me into sort of like a pseudo state almost, where it helps me focus exactly on what I'm doing in this moment and not on any of the other stuff going on besides that.
Yeah. And one of the reasons for that, well, not only are you relaxing yourself when you're meditating, in which you're practicing that skill, but when you're focusing on a mantra, Owen's brain is not any different than anybody else's. His brain will wander, and the skill of teaching the mind to stay focused on the mantra, the phrase, is something to practice and get better and better and better at. What that is focus. So all these shooters are like, I need to focus better. Can you help me focus better? Well, that's learning how to focus. So not only, it's like, well, there's probably a bazillion things I could mention you're getting from that, but you're carrying it over, which is awesome. And so in your pre-shot routine, not only you're calming yourself, especially in what could be a high tense moment or something that could be, you know, like maybe somebody did tell you the score, or maybe somebody did tell you're in the lead, or maybe, you know, what normally doesn't bother you, all of a sudden there's all these people or something. I don't know. But, you know, to be able to calm yourself down and get yourself out of those thoughts. And then your brain and your eyes need to go to the target and your plan and your process. You've been practicing focus in your meditation, so then it's easier for you than somebody else to go, no, right now you're focusing on your process, or no, right now I'm focusing on the details on this target, and you've been you're getting skills in that area. So how long have you been meditating?
My dad, since I started shooting, tried to get me to meditate. I was 15 at the time. I was not mature enough to really appreciate it. I was more annoyed by it than anything. I'm like, it's not going to do anything. You're a hippie, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I realized about the end of my high school senior year going into college, I finally bought into it. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll actually try it deliberately. I won't just do it because you're telling me to do it. And the first month or so, I really didn't notice anything, but he hammered it into me. He's like, trust me, you will start noticing it if you stick with it. And about 2 or 3 months in, I was at a CTP Nationals. I was sitting on 100 straight in double skeet. And I was going into my last like half pad, my last 10 pairs. And I'm really freaking out at this point. I can't focus on my whole points. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do the breathing that I've been doing in meditation and see if it does something. And it was almost kind of like something clicked at that point. It was almost like somebody flipped a switch with being able to like figure out my whole points. All of a sudden I remembered how to hold. I was just treating it one pair at a time. I didn't think about that. I was 96 straight at this point. I was just thinking, okay, this pair is what you're focusing on, not what you're doing later, not what you've done before.
Nice.
And that's what I really, really bought into doing the meditation.
That, I love it. So when did you get those 100 straight that you were talking about? How old were you then?
The
ones that you talked about earlier.
The 200 straight, I was 16 when I got that.
Okay.
This 100 straight in double skeet when I won the national title, and that I was 18.
Okay. I didn't know if they correlated around the same time, because those are some great skills. Yeah. All right, cool. So have you ever had a point in your shooting life where you thought about quitting or got so frustrated that you just didn't want to do it anymore, or want to walk off the field or something like that?
There was a time I never thought about quitting shooting, but There was a time when I started really getting into NFCA. When I made it into Master, I mean, that was a great accomplishment. That was in 2023 at the East Coast Championship, or 2022, rather. And I'm like, okay, I'm excited to be in Master. I can't wait to do all these great things. And the humbling experience about getting into Master is you're fighting with all the people who are full-time professionals at this point. And for the first 8 months or so after I got into Master, I basically didn't win anything, except for maybe a third place placement here in junior once in a while. And that was a tough time. I'd done a gun switch from a high rib to a flat rib solely for the purpose of sporting. I'd been doing all these lessons, and I was thinking at the time, okay, do I stick this out or do I go back to skeet? I was talking to Desi and my skeet coach, and they both convinced me that, listen, we've been looking at your scores, you're getting better. It may not feel like it because you don't have the medals to go with it, but you are getting better. Weather it out, keep doing what you're doing, and the awards will come. You can't force awards. And at Seminole Cup 2023 on the prelim course is when I finally broke out. I got, I think, Master first place, and that was the first time I'd ever placed high at anything at any major sporting clay shoot.
Right.
And that's when everything kind of not clicked, but that's when I'm like, okay, I really was getting better. They weren't just saying that to make me feel better. I just got to keep doing what I'm doing, trusting the process, and it will come my way as long as I just keep doing what I'm doing.
Nice. Yeah, I actually just had a client this morning and I was talking to him. I didn't do the stock market example, but I did tell him you're stepping up. Like you continue to go up, but there's little plateaus along the way. And that's part of it, like, because you open a new door to the new level where you're functioning. So what happened for him is he just recently won several events, side events and all that, and he just hadn't ever done that before. So, you know, he's winning all these events. His scores increased by like 20 points from his average a year ago. So but then typical for what, and I'm sure you experienced this also, then you have a whole new set of thoughts, like thinking you've arrived or thinking, your brain's like thinking about how well you did at the last two events or competitions. And then you think you don't have to work so hard or something. And in actuality, you have to go back to what worked originally, right? Being in the process and working the specific skills of the mechanics and the mental to then continue to rise from that new plateau, right? And that's what you're talking about. It's important to step back. I think that's great advice that they both gave you to see the overall trajectory. And Masters is tricky in this sport because you are shooting against them. And I talked to a lot of people about that because it can feel like almost like a balloon that's being deflated. You know, you're succeeding, you're working your way up, you're getting these points, and you keep going. And all of a sudden you're at a spot where it's like, well, hell, I'm one of like whatever, 800 or something like that in this event. And I got to really make an impact here. But yet there's all these other guys and women that have been doing it longer, doing it more, have a higher level of mechanics and mental and blah, 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 right? And not to let that deflate you. I think for my observation, talking to a lot of people about that, is they then turn their focus to, I want to feel like I've done my best. I want to feel like I can walk away from that event knowing that I did my best for where I'm at this stage. And that kind of saves their brain and helps them to still stay in it, right? Is that one of the things
that was a big part of it for a while. Was I realized about halfway into that 8-month stretch that, okay, there are people doing it full time. They're professionals. They've been doing it way longer than I have. The fact that I'm remotely near to them as a 18-year-old who's a full-time student is an accomplishment out on itself.
Nice.
And at that point, it went from, okay, I need to win this. I need to break every clay. It went from that to, I don't want to feel like I left anything out on the course. And that doesn't mean don't miss. That doesn't mean hit every single bird. That means, did I do everything that within my control to do the best that I can? And at that point, that is just, it's not just all the stuff inside shooting. It's what you did outside of it as well. I wanted to feel like I wasn't leaving stuff that I can make up on my own without, say, doing it full time. It's just doing the best I think I can do on a course.
Nice. For where you're at that point.
Yes, exactly. It's a weird explanation I try to explain to some of the people I coach. It's, you don't have to break every clay to do your best on a course.
Yeah.
Doing your best is doing your process every time, not rushing yourself, just sticking and being, I wouldn't say strict, but following the process that you've been doing and not getting lazy.
Nice, nice. You had said early on here that at Seminole, you didn't have some of your great performances. So I'm curious, have you been able to dissect that? And whether mechanically or mentally, what would you say caused you to fall shorter than you would have thought at that event?
Part of this ties into the no excuse mentality that I have. I do have a new gun. I got it. I got it back in November. The stock was way too high. I got it adjusted, got it back in January, and I've had to get it adjusted twice since then. It does fit me now. It's also 3.5 pounds lighter than my old gun. I shoot an 8.5 pound Perazzi MX8, 32-inch barrel flat ribs. And most likely it's because of how light the gun is. That being said, just the way I work mentally, I will not let my gun feel be the reason for why I tell myself I didn't shoot well. In all honesty, it's probably that I got into my head when I missed the first few birds and just kept on getting more and more upset with myself, started not doing my process, and that's probably what caused it. And by probably, I mean that's absolutely what caused it. Being aware of what you're doing in the middle of a round is helpful sometimes because hindsight sucks. Being like, oh, if only I hit 3 or 4 more birds, or like, oh, if I would have ran this station, I would have won. You can't control that in the middle of a round, especially if you don't know what you need to shoot. You just got to take it on a station by station basis. And I wasn't doing that. I was focusing on, oh, I'm down 8. I have to stop being down 8. I should have just focused on, okay, I'm going to shoot this station now, and then I'm going to shoot the next station, and then I'm going to shoot the next station. You can't change what you've already done. You can only control what you have yet to do is the biggest thing. And I just didn't follow that process. I
got you. But to help ease your mind a little bit on the expectation thing and being one who's been on an expectation journey, I didn't mean expectation. I meant excuses. The excuses thing. You know, legitimately having a flat tire and that making you late for something is real life. The misuse of that information is using it like a poor me, nothing ever goes my way. This is why I'm not, I didn't get here on time or whatever, versus this is just I did get a flat tire. I could have probably left earlier in case of something happening. But then again, it did take an hour before somebody even got there to help or before I could change the tire. And the fact is at that point, you're just late, right? And so there are reality things that aren't really just excuses. And so, I think there's some truth or reality to the fact of what you've been going through with your gun and the fact that it is lighter. And that's okay. It just needs you need some repetition of it. So I would think that was part of the factor. But then also, you did talk about the mental thing. So I'm curious, what do you think helps you to remember to go into your mental process versus letting your mind get carried away? How could you manage that differently since you do have some tools? And why do you think you didn't in that particular case?
So I think the biggest part of it is just experience and having dealt with it before. I'm usually pretty able to get back into my mental state after a miss or two. I think in this scenario, I know I'm doing much better with this gun than I should be. Having had it for such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I've shot really good with it. I put up a high score on the red course with it. I think the biggest thing was I think after I shot, I HOA'd Super Sporting the day before. I HOA'd 12 gauge the day before. I think I set my expectations. I'm not going to say too high because I always set my expectations high. You should. But I think I instead of treating it as a, wow, you're doing really good thing, I treated it as a more of a, wow, you look how good you've done. There's no excuse for you to miss now.
Yeah.
That was just, it was a mental lapse. I've gotten a lot better at not having mental lapses just through having meditation and having experience. But it got to a point where I was so in my head about how I was shooting. I tried to pull myself back, missed the first bird after I felt like I pulled myself back. And after that, that was on station 3 or 4, I think. So I dropped 4 birds on that station. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, you have 2 choices here. You're either going to go in the cart and you're going to do a meditation because there's a 30-minute delay now. So you're going to go meditate, or you can go wallow and be mad at yourself because you missed. And then you'll probably end up missing more because you're mad at yourself. So I went into my cart. I did a 10-minute meditation. And as you probably know, trying to do a meditation when you're mad at yourself is quite an experience. But I grounded myself to the best of my ability. Ran out my last 3 stations. A thing that I like is I think I stopped the bleeding.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not about, okay, you can't miss. Sometimes it's just about, frankly, damage control. If you do what you know how to do, the birds will come your way. And I wasn't doing that until the last 3 stations of the course. I was trying to force stuff. I was trying to shoot things really early because I wasn't sure where I was missing. I tried messing up my pre-shot routine. I'm like, okay, what if I just go fast and stop thinking? Maybe it's because I'm thinking. And when you get your mind going like that and you start doing whatever the first impulse you get, it usually doesn't end up well.
Right. And again, at any point down your road or whatever, but the next level for you would be able to manage your conscious level thinking so that you don't even get upset with yourself. So right now,
Yes.
What happens is people, they start fires, right? So they start these fires and then they try to put a Band-Aid on it. They try to temporarily put it out, but the fire keeps starting over and over again. And you can, and anybody listening can learn to just not even start the fire, right? So what you're talking about is the fire was started and then I had a hard time meditating because the fire was already burning, but you can actually learn to not even start it to begin with. So, but again, you're young and you've got some great mental things going on already that far further than a lot of people, especially your age. So your father has taught you a lot. And does he shoot also?
Yes, he doesn't shoot super competitively. He's told me personally he gets a lot more enjoyment out of watching me shoot than he does shooting. But at the same time, it is really cool for him to be able to shoot with me. He does shoot. He's I'd say significantly more mentally mature than me just because I think he's had that experience. He's a big proponent of trust the process. He's the one who kind of hammered that into me.
Yeah.
But he doesn't shoot super competitively. He just shoots with me.
Yeah. So travels around. Do you have any siblings or your mother
Yes,
travel with you also?
I have a younger sister, so my mom usually stays home with her when me and my dad travel.
So you and your father. Well, that's cool. Some good quality time with you guys there. So the times that you have been in this zone state or this where it felt amazing and it didn't even feel like it was you pulling the trigger and time flew by and people seemed to disappear around you, all of that. Like how many times would you say that you've been in that state?
So when I first started, it was that one time. And then I don't think I felt that way again for a year. It's more that I got used to people talking behind me rather than I got into that zone state. But when I started shooting NFCA, I started very consciously replicating what I did in meditation. And I find that nowadays, pretty much every single round I shoot, I am able to get into that state, save for the once or twice that, again, like the Seminole Cup thing, you get mentally jarred, try to ground yourself. It happens. We're not perfect.
Nice.
But I find I'm able to get in that state very, very well. I think that's probably my biggest strength is how I'm able to get into that state.
That's awesome. There's a lot of people out there that don't think that you can get better at how frequently you go in the zone or how long you can stay in it, or if you're even able to do it deliberately. A lot of even top shooters and professionals think, oh, you can't make the zone happen. So would you say that you're making the zone happen, or how would you describe how frequently you can experience the zone and why that is occurring?
I would say it's kind of like trying to sleep. When you try to force it to happen, it doesn't.
Nice.
You have to use all of the training and meditation and all the mental processes you're doing outside of the sport, and it will come to you. If you think I need to get in the zone, I need to get in the zone, I need to get in the zone, you won't get in the zone. And
Perfect.
I know it's sometimes it's difficult to explain because I can't pinpoint it exactly to one thing that gets me into the zone. I think it's more of a combination of the things I do outside of that moment that allow me to end up in that zone rather than to force it to happen.
That is so great. Very insightful. Yeah, because that's my conclusion too. When these so-called experts or whoever says you can't make the zone happen, they don't realize how you get into it by letting go a bunch of stuff, but not by forcing into it, not by making it happen. And that's hard for someone who is all about mechanics and physical and teaching something like mechanics, because everything is very physical and you do it, right? Like you do this next and you do this in your gun mount and you do this, with your follow through. So things are very physical and noticeable and actionable, but the zone is actually a letting go of the things that would keep you from being in it. And it is hard to explain, especially to somebody who's never experienced, but it's for someone who's not working on their mind at all. And I agree also, very insightful of you, that it's not one thing, it's multiple things that you're working on. Like for everything to disappear around you, to feel like it's not even you pulling the trigger, your conscious mind is totally quiet. So you're not thinking or overanalyzing Those are all things that you can work on and get better at. And a lot of it comes to because I'm not thinking about those people around me. I'm focused on the specifics. I'm not thinking about my score. I'm focused on the specifics. I'm not analyzing, overanalyzing, I should say, the projection or whatever. Now you still analyze in the show pair, right? And you still make a plan, right? Yeah. That's another tricky thing. People are like, wait a minute, am I still analyzing and making a plan for this? And that's the proper use of your conscious mind. And then you got to do that. You got to gather the data and make the analyzation and get some points, but then you've got to let go, which is tricky, especially for someone who's very controlling or someone who's super analytical or just focused so much on the mechanics and the physical stuff. Yeah, very cool. Well, that question, some people will say, I've never been in the zone. Some people say, oh, just a few times here and there. And some people are like all the time. So, and I would say that's a very small percentage who say that. So again, that's going to take you far. Having great mechanics is one thing, but being able to bring those mechanics to a competition where everything about you is under a microscope, emphasized, right? Exaggerated, like whether you're calm, cool, and collected, or whether you have a temper and freak out and don't like it when things don't go your way. Like all of that is magnified at a tournament, and you can't ignore those things. And that's why they say it's 90% mental, because you can have a beautiful gun and a great instructor and lots of practice and great mechanics, but what's going to happen when your mind's off, right? So what percentage would you say it is as far as mental?
It's funny. I think there's stages to it. I think when you're brand new, yes, you got to get the fundamentals down. You got to learn how to shoot. There is a point I find that I'm a student of the game. That's the wording I like to use. There's always something to learn. No one's ever 100%. There's nothing more to learn. You've learned everything. There's always new methods. Yep, exactly. There's always new things to learn.
Yeah.
I find I'd say 99, maybe even at this point, 100% mental. If you know how to shoot birds, especially in something like skeet. Skeet's the same bird every single time.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. Maybe it's a little windy. I like skeet as an example because it's the same bird.
Mm-hmm.
I find when I figured out hold points in skeet, when you unconsciously realize what the leads are, at that point, it is all just execution and mental processes. I think it's at the least 98, 99%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is a sport where at face value, it is pretty simple. It's you load a gun, you give it the right amount of lead, it breaks. And there is more to it than that. But the mental process, if you already know how to shoot a bird that you shot 1,000 times, then why don't you every time? It all comes down to how you mentally treat that bird.
Nice. That's a good explanation right there. And I like that you pulled it back to skeet because, skeet and trap both have got to the point that you're not going to win unless you break 100, right? And you're not going to win unless you can hold it together in a shoot off either. Like that's just what that sport has become. Both sports have become. And
this past weekend, I was in a 50 bird skeet shoot off. It was just, sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
It was two rounds of skeet, 50 birds at the shoot off. There were 5 of us out of I think there's only 40 or 50 people at the tournament. It went 2.5 rounds, which is longer than the 50 birds that we shot to qualify for the shoot off. So, I mean, skeet getting to the shoot off is half the work. You get to the shoot off, okay, congrats. You can finish anywhere from 1st to 30th.
Right.
So, and I mean, some people think that's fun. Some people don't like it. I like it. I think it's the fun part of skeet is getting in that shoot off, but the shoot off is also by far the hardest part. Yeah, you could do all that work to get in the shoot off, and you miss your first bird, it's over like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, again, in that sport, if you miss one bird ever, it's over that. Right?
Congrats, you're shooting off for 19th now.
It's such a great way to practice the mental game, and the fact that you had that also. I mean, you've got the meditation experience, you've got your father who's got this social work experience, understanding, knowledge that he's passed on to you. You've got this time at shooting skeet carrying over. So you got a lot of dominoes lining up to help you to be really successful with this. So it's pretty cool. What do you think makes you love it so much? Like what motivates you to keep coming back for more compared to other things that you've done?
So the easiest answer is everybody likes winning. I can't tell you a single person who doesn't not like to win. But I think for a completely non-selfish perspective, the people that I've met in this sport and the team, especially I'm the vice president for the Florida State team. I was team captain for a 100-person SCTP team. Though I have found those times are so much more enjoyable than the pure individual NSCA aspect.
Yeah.
I love the group of people that I've met. And as a coach, I love to see some of my students progress and get better and them succeed in their own part. The social aspect of it to me is by far the best part about this sport.
Yeah.
Because in some ways, it's kind of like, I used to do competitive golf. It's kind of like golf. It's like you are putting up your own score. And for team scores, they combine scores. And I've heard people try to tell me, oh, this sport's all individual. It's just what you shoot and they take what everyone else shoots by themselves and they put them together. It's not a team sport. And I'd counter that teams who win national titles in shooting sports don't just put their top 5 shooters together. They put people who socially work well together. They put people who have similar personalities together. And it is a very unique sport in that aspect. It's at the same time, it's both a very individual sport and a very unselfish sport.
Yeah.
This is the only sport that I've seen where you are competing against other people, yet those people are very quick to try to help you out.
Yeah.
It is the only sport I've seen like that.
Yeah.
I can't name another sport off the top of my head where you miss, say you have a bad golf shot or you miss like 5 birds and the person you're competing against, maybe you're even tied with them, will come up and be like, hey, do you want my 2 cents? I think you were behind that bird.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very, very cool aspect of this sport. And that helps in a lot of other parts of life, just the willingness to help other people, even if you may not be competing against them, the willingness to help them out, and realize that if they're going to beat me, they're going to beat me. It's my fault because at the end of the day, I'm the one shooting. It's a game against yourself at a certain point. And I think the point of it being a game against yourself is very, very interesting.
That's awesome. The, again, great explanation for that. A lot of people, say that it's the people that and the other shooters and the experience, but you broke it down really nicely. And you made me think about, like, golf is a very individual sport. And prior to me working so much with clay shooters, I worked with PGA golfers, and I used to go to competitions monthly, PGA tours, just like I go pretty regularly to clay shooting. And it was very different, right? So as far as singular sport, like they're practicing by themselves, they may have a little bit of small talk with one of the other golfers. But other than that, they're going to dinner, maybe with maybe another friend or something. It meant another golfer that's a friend. The caddies were separate. The caddies partied. They would go to strip clubs or whatever they would do. But the golfers, they almost went always back to their hotel. They're usually by themselves, or if they're married, their wife might be there or something. So very, very singular. And then I think, most people that shoot shotgun, they're very outdoorsy. They like hunting. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And to be able to be outside, to sit down at a picnic table, we have 20 picnic tables, 50 picnic tables. We have pulled pork and hang out, and some people are hanging out and drinking, and some people have RVs, and it's like this whole outdoorsy experience, camaraderie and hanging out and having fun, and it is very different in that way. And the other thing I wanted to say is, like, 5 years or something of working with PGA and LPGA, they wanted to keep it a secret. Like, I was the magic pill. They might fly me in and I might be there, but we're going to work behind the scenes. And out in the golf course, like, don't even act like you know me. Like, that's how it was. And in clay shooting, it took off like wildfire, because when I would work with somebody, they would tell 5 or 10 people. I worked with a high-level shooter, and that was an instructor, and they started referring their students to me. And it just grew, and it grew because of exactly what you're saying. They want to help. I mean, there are some high-level shooters that have been like, I'm only sending you people that would not be my direct competition. Like, it actually admitted that. But, so some of them are so competitive that they didn't want their direct challenge to know or start working with me. But most instructors that are high level are practically everybody that they're coaching is at some level below them. So they could just send me people like crazy. And that took off because of that. And it's because of exactly what you said. Yeah. So
I at these tournaments, I think it's so awesome that, like, you'll sit down at this table for lunch, you may be by yourself, and by the end of that lunch, you're having full conversations with people you've never met in your life. Yeah. And like, you'll see them at that tournament, and you'll go a month later and you'll see them like, oh, hey, how's it going? I ate lunch with you last month. Let's catch up. And it's people that you would never Like maybe they're not like you at all. Maybe they don't have any of your hobbies, any of your interests. They're not even from the same state. And it's really, really cool in that aspect. There are some people that I've met 5 years ago, just at really local NFPA shoots at Forest City, that I'll see now and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? And it is really cool.
And you're spending that 4 hours or whatever with the squad, and you're getting to know them a little bit also. And everybody's taking pictures and hugging afterwards or whatever. And that was, another thing. I started for a little short period of time going to archery events, and it was very different. Even though they were in teams of whatever, I don't even know exact 3, 4, 5. They didn't really talk much, and there wasn't really that same feeling. And then afterwards, they all left. There wasn't kind of this hanging out thing. So even though they were in groups and they were going, I don't know if they call them station to station or whatever, but it still had a different vibe than when you're squatted with somebody for an entire event. And every time you're squatted with people, there's new people you're going to see again, and they're your buddies then also, right? The next time you see them. Yeah, it keeps building.
I love random squatting. I know some people who like to shoot in the same squad every single time, know their people. I love random squatting. I rarely squad request with people. I'm fine if people squad request with me. I rarely go out of my way to try to shoot with somebody unless it's my dad.
Right.
But I love meeting new people. I get that from my dad also. He's a talker. I used to not be. I used to be pretty quiet. And then I started doing these NACA shoots. And now I find myself I'll go to squad, hey, I'm Owen, and I'll just start talking about some random stuff. And now I find myself talking to random people when I'm eating lunch that I would have never otherwise have talked to.
Nice.
So I know this is pretty cliche, but it is really like one big family. Like,
yeah.
And I know that again, that's pretty cliche, but I think it's true.
Yeah. No, I'm following you. And it's funny you bring that up as far as being a talker. I can tell that you're very confident. You talk. I don't want to say a lot, but you do talk, right? You're not quiet and shy, and
I talk a lot.
You have a lot. You're high energy, and for you to have that personality and to be able to calm it down, like that meditation is helping you to reel that in, so that you're not, having all this energy going in and shooting. So that's pretty great, because that for you it would be more of a challenge. And people like you that have a lot of energy, it's even more of a challenge to quiet that down. So the fact that you're practicing things is good for balance for you, Okay, cool. Well, I do want to tell listeners that they can get free goodies. They get free access to some of my mental training stuff, my Mind Mastered app, and then also a free golf cart or push cart rental at my shotgun club, Amelia Shotgun Sports. So you just go to dongrant.com/free. And then also definitely follow me on social media. I give lots of tips, free tips on lots of reels and videos and everything. Oh, and so where do you see yourself in, 5 to 10 years? What are some of your goals?
I don't see myself doing this full time. I don't want this, and I may eat my words, I don't want this to become a job. I love this as a hobby. I pretty much do this more than anything else besides school. I'd like to be in 5 years in a PhD program for either medical or clinical psych. And knowing that, I know I have give or take 2-3 years left. I'm a sophomore in college. I know that's coming up. I'm treating this time now more of as a do the best you can, enjoy it while it lasts. Then you got to go to school. Then the real work begins. And then after you get out of school, you'll probably have time to get back into it. But it's all about prioritizing certain things.
Got you. Okay.
But yeah, I love the sport. It's going to suck when I have to drop it for a bit, but I'm not dropping it for life.
I got you. All right. I'm following you. So, but right now you are doing instruction, and you do like doing that right now, right? As far as
I get more reward out of coaching, I'd argue, than I do out of shooting.
Yeah.
I was coaching a younger kid about a year ago, and I was teaching him how to shoot trap, and he was really new, averaging about 12, 13 around. Little bit of coaching, whatever. I leave to go back to school for 2 months, and his mom calls me and is like, Caleb just shot a 25 in trap for the first time. And I think that is cooler than any other moment that I've had in shooting, was hearing one of my students do that well. And Caleb's like, and I wouldn't say I'm friends with him. I am friends with Caleb now. I coach him a fair bit. To watch somebody grow the path that I have already been on is a really rewarding experience.
Nice. Yes, I could see that. So you would be interested in people contacting you for instruction?
Absolutely.
So
The only hard part for me is just finding time at school.
I got you. Well, it doesn't hurt to put the info out there, and you're up in the Savannah area. So give folks your info, how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. My email is just my first and last name and then 23. So OwenHaas23 @gmail. My Instagram handle is Owen_Haas23. I respond to that. I'd argue better than my email. So those are the two easiest ways to get in contact with me. I'm very bad about picking up calls. I'm very good about responding to texts. Yeah, those are the two easiest ways to get in contact with me.
Okay, cool. And do you have any shout outs?
The main shout outs I would like to shout out are my parents. They've been both a big influence. I don't think I talked about my mom enough in this podcast. She's been a huge part of it. She keeps me very much on the straight and narrow. She's been the reason for my academic success. She's been a big reason of the way I perform at tournaments purely as a do the work kind of person. My mom has always been a do the work kind of person. She's the reason I put in a lot of work both for school and for shooting. Again, I want to thank my dad for the mental part of it. All my coaches have been great. Desi, Tim Short have been the two biggest influences. But yeah, those are the people who've really made a difference.
Nice. Yeah, we can't get very far without our parents, especially in an expensive sport when you're young.
They are by far the biggest sponsors.
Congratulations on your successes and these strengths that you're having already in your mental game and all that and your mechanics. So I look forward to seeing where that's going to take you in this. And also good luck with your plans for your career as well and your schooling. So definitely come say hi at events and give me an update on how you're doing.
Thank you for joining us on Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Remember, mastering the mental game is key to unlocking your full potential on the course. And through our conversations with industry leaders, we aim to provide you with valuable insights into the world of clay shooting. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. For more insights, training tips, and updates on upcoming events, Dawn Grant and Amelia Shotgun Sports are on all social media platforms. Go to DawnGrant.com and come shoot at Amelia Shotgun Sports. Stay focused, stay driven, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time, Dawn wishes you success and happiness on your journey to peak performance and industry mastery.